Give us first your reaction to the Samsung numbers.
For Samsung, I mean, it's no surprise. In Q4, it's usually, their smartphone shipments are the lowest because they face competition from the newly launched iPhones. Samsung launches its flagships earlier in the year, then their smartphone shipments in the quarter are higher, but Q4 is not their strongest time.
When it comes to the semiconductor business, we saw this down cycle late last year. Are we expecting a recovery anytime soon?
So in Q4, we saw, a soft demand from the server side, which also pulled down the prices. But I think in the coming quarters, we'll see, or we expect to see those businesses start to stockpile some of the DRAM chips as well. And that should also help to drive the demand up.
Is the peak really over in terms of the demand from the pandemic stay-at-home trade?
It's been ongoing. So, for throughout this year, the demand for, the displays for computing devices has been pretty strong as people are working from home. They continue to work from home in most of the countries. So the demand for, work from home devices and for entertainment devices has been strong. And that's been, driving the demand for a lot of the memory components.
What about as expected or potential front-loading ahead of an expected shortage in DRAM later this year?
Hopefully, we should see some of these businesses start to stockpile in Q1. And, there is expected supply crunch later this year. So hopefully, when they start stockpiling, that's going to drive up the prices as well. And that's going to be good for the companies like Samsung.
Kiranjeet, how much has the stronger won hurt?
Yes, so Samsung does record its, it makes its revenue in US dollar and then it reports in won. So that has definitely hurt Samsung's earnings to some extent. But on the other hand, I would also say that, the downside that it saw from the smartphone side and to some extent from the chip business, but it also saw some upside in terms of the display business. So if iPhones are doing well and the OLED displays that go into iPhones, they're supplied by Samsung. So that's in turn good for Samsung, even if it hurts their smartphone business.
Talking about smartphones, looking ahead, the flagship series Galaxy S21, they're going to unveil it next week, it seems. What are we expecting in terms of demand?
The flagships, they usually boast of better specifications all around, especially when we look at the camera or the processor or the displays. And now how much of an increment they post in these cases, I think that's, what really defines the potential demand, what it's likely to be. I would say, much of it also would depend on how they price it against the new iPhones. The good thing for Samsung is that Huawei has receded in most of the countries, especially as far as their flagships are concerned in markets like Europe. But on the other hand, downside is that those countries are still in lockdown. That's clamping down the demand in those countries.